It's so stupid. This narrative doesn't make sense when you think about it more than 3.5 seconds, okay? The idea that, like, Palestinians are being brutalized ruthlessly by Hamas, okay?
This is a video of the aftermath of a strike in the Al-Shati refugee camp in Gaza. According to journalists working for CNN, the attack came...
This is an American nurse who got out of Gaza and who describes the desperation she saw.
During intense Israeli
I'm going to go pee real quick.
A bombing Sunday night, the IDF has not commented on the incident. United Nations officials today said 70% of people in the Gaza Strip are displaced, many in living in conditions a statement called, quote, inhumane. The Secretary General said that Gaza is becoming a, quote, graveyard for children. Israel's ambassador to the UN lashed out at the comments, called for the Secretary General's resignation. Emily Callahan is a nurse, activity manager for Doctors Without Borders, MSF. She was evacuated last Wednesday and arrived back in the U.S. just over the weekend. First of all, how does it feel to be out?
A lot of people keep asking me that, and I really don't have a good answer. I obviously have a sense of relief that I'm home and I'm with my family and feel safe for the first time in 26 days, and I'm having a really hard time finding any joy in any of it, because me being safe is the result of having to leave people behind.
People watching this have seen images from Gaza. They've seen the hospital images. They've seen the horror of children dead day after day after day after day.
It's very important. It's very important to have a well-spoken, blonde, white American to speak on behalf of Palestinians. Okay? Why? Because you already know what the broad majority of Americans feel about Palestinians. You fucking have a brown man on there. They're going to go, nope, that's not, I can't understand it. I can't put this in a frame of reference that's appropriate. I can't trust this person. It sucks. It sucks, but it's the truth. It's also one of the other reasons as to why I use a lot of Jewish Israeli scholars as well, some of which are obviously some of the best scholars in the game for an adequate retelling of Israeli history. But the other reason is because there's no other way to contextualize this for those who are not willing to hear a brown person's perspective. It is also one of my advantages as well, something I'm very open about. Me being a white passing, relatively attractive guy is a major benefit to me being able to talk about trans issues in a way that, like, the actual transphobes or those who are in the margins of maybe becoming more transphobic than they actually are can hear. Okay? Because when a trans person advocates for their own emancipation, the transphobic people are just going to look at that and go, no, that's a trans person. I don't trust them. Like, it's just, you know, that's where the underlying resentment begins to begin with. Bro just threw that attract. I said relatively. I try to use that privilege that I have for good.
I mean, they've seen all the images, but to actually be there and to experience it, you're experiencing all these things which a camera can never capture. So could you just talk a little bit about when you close your eyes at night, what is it you think about?
Yeah, notice how she's not asked to condemn Hamas. Think about that for a second. Why is she not asked to condemn Hamas? Did they ask her to condemn Hamas? Why'd they not ask her to condemn Hamas? Something to consider.
I think the answer to that question, I'll start at KYTC, which was we were relocated about 5 times over the course of 26 days due to security concerns. And one of the places we wound up was the Khan Yunis Training Center. We call it KYTC.
That's when people had evacuated to the south. So you were in the south of Gaza at that point.
Yes, when we went to below Wadi Gaza line. And there were, by the time we left there were 35,000 internally displaced people living alongside us. There were children with just massive burns down their faces, down their necks, all over their limbs. And because the hospitals are so overwhelmed, they are being discharged immediately after, and they're being discharged to these camps with no access to running water. There's 50,000 people at that camp now in 4 toilets. They're given 2 hours of water every 12 hours.
There's 4 toilets for 50,000 people.
Yes. And that's where we were living too. And they have these fresh, open burns and wounds and partial amputations that are just walking around these conditions. And parents are bringing their children to us going, please, can you help? Please, can you help? And we have no supplies.
When in situations where there are tens of thousands of people and it is a war and people can't feed their kids, things get strange very fast and things get tough very, very fast and people turn on each other. You saw that up close.
At KYTC, the reason we had to leave was because we were starting to be harassed. Desperate people who are losing loved ones right and left are angry. And they would point at me and scream American walking past. And at that point, we had no idea what was coming in the next few days. And they would yell things in Hebrew to see if we were Israeli. They accused our national staff of either being traitors or said, you're pretending to be Arab. We know that you're just pretending to be Arab. Stop lying to us. And our staff had to defend themselves. And we said to them over and over again, you don't have to stay. We understand if you want to leave us. And they said, you are family too, and we're not going anywhere.
Your staff, the Palestinians who work for MSF or Doctors Without Borders, were concerned about your safety.
We would have died within a week without them. They are the only reason we are alive.
It's incredible that this took so long to get Americans, sick people, start to move through that Rafah border crossing. It's inexplicable.
And we were desperate. We did a calorie count at one point based on our supplies and figured out that if all of us, there's 50 people with us living in a parking lot now, only ate 700 calories a day. If that's all we had 2 days of food left, and that's it. And our national staff took off. We had no cell service at that point, so we had no idea what had happened to them. There's bombs going off all around us because there's no safe place in Gaza.
Even getting through that Rafah border crossing, what was that like?
They didn't leave our side for a second.
The national staff?
The national
because
staff.
Because they feared for your safety, even at the border crossing.
They made sure they were standing between us and desperate people. They made sure that they were talking to every official that they could find, trying to push us through, trying to get us on the bus, trying to get us out. And we're standing there and we're watching these incredible men who have sacrificed everything for us, who have sacrificed time with their families, their own physical safety, their own water supply they were giving to us. And we're watching them fight to get us across the border, knowing that we were not bringing them with us. And they didn't waver. Ibrahim was right in the front with our passports, fighting so hard to get us on. And we get to Arish that night and find out his parents are dead. They were losing family members and friends.
You said if it wasn't for your national staff, you think you would have been killed by people who were just desperate.
We either would have starved to death or run out of water. They were the ones that negotiated all of that. Gaza's a small city, so everyone knows everyone, and they would call in favors and call their friends and say, who do you know that has food? Who do you know that's open? Where can we get this? And they would drive all over the place to find water. And when we ran out of bottled water in Gaza, they were the ones that were able to figure out that the water truck was coming here at these times, and oh, I know this guy has a grocery store and they still have power sometimes. I think I can probably get something from them. Like when I say we would have starved to death without them, I'm not exaggerating. And in the moments of absolute desperation of civilians, they were steadfast and calm and just talked to them and said, these people are also in the same boat that you are. They have no supplies. They also have no food and water. They are also sleeping outside on the concrete, and did it in such a beautiful way that they were able to talk them down with love and kindness. There was no violence in their heart, and it calmed everyone around them down as well.
Would you go back to Gaza?
In a heartbeat. In an absolute heartbeat. My heart is in Gaza. It will stay in Gaza. The Palestinian people that I worked with, both our national staff in the office as well as my staff at Indonesia Hospital, were some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life. When everything went off and we got the notice to move south of Wadi Gaza.
It's wild to me that, like, the entire time Anderson Cooper is like, so you're afraid of the barbaric perverts, right? Like, I mean, like, they were doing, I'm sure that they were trying to do mass rapes to you, right? I suspect that Hamas was trying to do a mass rape on you and everyone who works at Doctors Without Borders, obviously, because they're barbarian freaks, right? That's who you were afraid of. Anyone who fucking goes to Gaza will tell you that they are infinitely more afraid of the IDF than they are of any Palestinian there. It's so stupid. This narrative doesn't make sense when you think about it more than 3.5 seconds, okay? The idea that, like, Palestinians are being brutalized ruthlessly by Hamas, okay, is not even something that Palestinians can factor in to their equation. You want to know why? Because bombs are dropping on their heads, okay? It's stupid. It's a stupid thing to say. And it's almost always said by those who speak for Palestinians by claiming that they care about Palestinian emancipation, who then say Israel is trying to liberate Palestinians from Hamas. The fuck do you mean?
I was texting my nurses at Indonesia Hospital, and I said, we lost a nurse weekend one. He was killed when the ambulance outside the hospital was blown up. And I was texting them when we got the evacuation orders, and I said, did any of you move south? Did any of you get out? Like, are any of you coming down this way? And the only answer I got was, this is our community. This is our family. These are our friends. If they're going to kill us, we're going to die saving as many people as we can. And I said, if I can ever have an ounce.
For the record, come on, man. I think he's doing a good job to ask her stuff to clear up the misconception. Just having her on air is huge. Dude, how fucking low is the bar, man? You think she's the first Doctors Without Borders doctor that's white that's, like, actually fucking come out of Gaza? I can show you 100 doctors that are still currently working that or have worked in Gaza. You want to know why I can show you 100 of them? Because I watch Democracy Now! And for years and years, they've been speaking out against the whole headquarters of Hamas is under the hospital. No, the major reason why he's doing that is because maybe he can fucking swing it in a direction that's clippable so that liberal Zionists can still turn around and be like, well, see? See? You could totally ask that question in a more reasonable way if you wanted to be like, IDF, which has a history of, the IDF, which is unfortunately not a very credible actor in this situation, has a history of declaring that Hamas militants are incredibly violent towards all foreigners. Is this true from your experience? Like, something along those lines. Not like, not in the way that you're asking that question in general. The framing of that question, in my opinion, dictates what the motivation, the real motivation is.
The heart that you have, I will die a happy person. They were incredible. I would like to send out a reminder that there are civilians seeking shelter there and that my doctors and nurses didn't leave out of loyalty to their community. And I know that there is an idea being pushed right now that anyone that stayed behind is going to be considered some kind of a threat. And I want to remind people that the people that stayed behind are heroes. The people that stayed behind are they know they're going to die, and they're choosing to stay behind anyway.
This also completely goes against the human shield narrative that Israel loves pushing. Understand how important this is to say. There are plenty of Palestinians who simply refuse to leave their homes, knowing full well that they might fucking die. And the reason for why they're doing that is not because they want to put their bodies in front of fucking Israeli rocket fire. Okay? They just don't want to leave because they know what happens. Their entire history for the past 75 years is literally leaving and then never being able to return. So they want to go out on their own terms. And in the most disgusting way, Israel still unconditionally will claim that they are human shields. They're sheltering Hamas militants. Or Hamas is telling them not to evacuate. No, man. Those who want to evacuate get to evacuate. Those who stay behind are not being forced to stay behind at gunpoint. Okay?
You're talking about doctors, nurses in the hospital.
I wake up every morning and I send out a text message and I ask, are you alive? And every night before I go to sleep, I send another message and says, are you alive?
Okay.
Welcome.
All right, Benzion Sanders is the founder of Breaking the Silence. He's a former IDF veteran.